Dear curious listener, close your eyes, sink into your pillow, and prepare to party. No, not modern party. No flashing lights, no playlists, no freedom. We're going back to London, 1812, where partying was a full-time job and debutantes were the glitter-covered pawns of the aristocracy. You are 17, painfully well-behaved, and freshly polished for your grand debut. For the next few months, you'll promenade, curtsy, sip weak tea, fake laughter, and accidentally make eye contact with eligible bachelors across crowded ballrooms, all while pretending to have fun. Welcome to the Regency social season. It's elegant, it's expensive, it's exhausting. Subscribe and tell me what country you're watching from. I'm genuinely curious. Now, straighten your gloves, lower your expectations, and let's begin. This is how you party like a Regency debutante. You wake up in London, and you are in danger. Not the kind of danger that involves swords or runaway carriages. No. This is the subtle, slow burn kind. The kind where your entire future depends on wearing the correct shade of lilac and not sneezing during a waltz. Welcome to the season. With a capital S, naturally, the great glittering circus of Regency society. If you are rich, unmarried, and unfortunately female, this is your moment. Or more accurately, this is your trial by fire. Dressed in silk. The London season officially stretches from November to June, but nobody takes it seriously until March, when Parliament is in full swing and the nobility return from their country estates, ready to spend ungodly amounts of money pretending to enjoy each other's company. The city overflows with barouches and gossip, and the marriage market kicks into high gear. That's right. The season has one primary goal: marriage. Not romance, not fulfillment, certainly not fun. Just marriage. Preferably one that increases your father's social capital and ensures your future husband's estate has enough income to cover your hats. So here you are, a debutante. You've come out, which doesn't mean anything fun. It just means you've been publicly declared eligible to wed, like a very well-dressed coupon. Your hair is up, your gloves are long. Your mother is armed with an ironclad calling card schedule and eyes like a hawk in a bonnet. Your family has rented a fashionable townhouse in Mayfair, something with high ceilings, low insulation, and just enough room for a piano no one will play. The servants have been doubled, the wardrobe tripled, the budget annihilated, and all of it for this: a whirlwind of balls, teas, musical evenings, promenade walks, and endless tiny sandwiches. The men? They'll get around to showing up eventually. Most of them are in Parliament or pretending to be. Some are soldiers, others are poets, which is considerably worse. They'll arrive in time to attend Almacs and mumble awkward compliments before disappearing into their clubs to drink and wager fortunes on the color of a dog's tail. But you're on display. Every moment of your day is curated, scheduled, and weaponized for charm. You are one of hundreds of eligible young women flooding into London this season. Some are daughters of dukes. Some are the newly rich, escorted by ambitious mothers who believe a silk train and a strategic nose powder can bridge the gap between merchant money and aristocratic bloodlines. And what are you competing for? Marriage licenses, preferably titled, possibly tolerable, hopefully solvent. You see, in Regency London, a good marriage is currency. Daughters are assets, and the season is less a celebration than it is an auction house with better lighting. Make no mistake, this isn't just a party. This is business. Every time you enter a drawing room, you are being silently evaluated. Your gown, your posture, your ability to discuss the weather without sounding too clever. There are rules to follow, and 1,000 ways to fail. Speak too much, you're overbearing. Speak too little, you're dull. Dance too often, you're desperate. Refuse a dance, you're rude. Accept one from the wrong man, you're scandalous. Accept one from the right man too quickly, you're scandalous again. And heaven help you if you actually enjoy yourself. Because despite all the champagne and sparkle, enjoyment is never the goal. The goal is optics, position, precision. You are not here to have fun. You are here to impress. Subtly, constantly, exhaustingly. Everything about the season is designed to funnel you toward a suitable match. A man who has enough land, a decent title, and ideally no active mistresses. Bonus points if he's only mildly condescending. And once you're engaged, congratulations. You're no longer a debutante. You've graduated from glittery merchandise to gently used wife in training. The fun never ends. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. For now, you are still new, still fresh, still optimistic. That will change soon enough. Your name has been added to invitation lists. Your mother has memorized the genealogies of every eligible bachelor within a 5-mile radius. And you are about to enter the most demanding, expensive, and excruciating party circuit in British history. So take a breath, adjust your gloves, and prepare to curtsy your way through 5 months of calculated small talk and deeply unflattering lighting. This is the season, and you, poor thing, are its entertainment. You are 16, maybe 17. You've spent the last 5 years playing piano, sewing crooked samplers, and reading only the first halves of novels, the part before the heroine gets into trouble. And now, you're being launched. No, not from a cannon, though that might be quicker. You're coming out. The term sounds glamorous, doesn't it? But this isn't a surprise party. There's no cake, no confetti. This is a formal, irreversible declaration. You are now of marriageable age, which means society will no longer pretend you don't exist. Instead, it will examine you very, very closely. Coming out means you have passed the point of girlhood. You are no longer Miss Lily Wexford of the nursery. You are now Miss Wexford of Grosvenor Square, eligible, presentable, and hypothetically charming. You've crossed a threshold, and the door behind you has locked. But before you can circulate in society, you need a transformation. And that starts with your wardrobe. The first thing to go is your pinafore, that modest, girlish apron tied neatly over your day dress. It's a signal of youth, of innocence, of having no reason to be noticed. Now, that innocence must be stored in a trunk somewhere in the attic. You're not here to be overlooked anymore. Instead, you are fitted, rather violently, into your first real gown. Soft pastels, empire waist, delicate sleeves designed to restrict motion in all directions. It is made to appear effortless and takes 3 people to fasten. Bonus points if the fabric is translucent enough to signal wealth, but not so translucent that Aunt Felicity faints. Gloves are now mandatory. So is posture. So is smiling at all times, but never too widely. Your teeth are clean, not adventurous. And don't forget the ribboned slippers, designed to glide elegantly across marble floors and also ruin your arches permanently. They are about as practical as a cucumber corsage. But again, practicality is not the goal. Now that you look the part, you must learn how to behave like one. Enter etiquette training, the silent, judgmental boot camp of the upper class. You'll be drilled in posture, voice control, and the precise angle of your head tilt when pretending to enjoy a minuet. Your dancing must be graceful, but not provocative. Your speech must be clear, but not clever. You must always be prepared to converse about art, poetry, or cloud formations, but never politics, religion, or the existence of ankles. Your mother hires a dancing master, a man who smells of chalk and despair, to teach you the essential steps, the quadrille, the waltz, the country dance. Each one is a socially sanctioned form of courtship negotiation. One misstep, and you've accidentally proposed marriage or insulted a baronet's lineage. You'll also receive lessons in deportment, which is Regency code for how to sit in a way that suggests fertility but not enthusiasm. Books may be balanced on your head. Rulers may be tied to your arms, and someone, somewhere, will inevitably say the words, "Shoulders down, dear, you're not a footman." And then, of course, there's the voice. A debutante must speak softly, laugh less, and never, under any circumstances, raise her tone above polite disinterest. You practice smiling into mirrors for hours. Not too toothy, not too flat. Try it again, your mother says. Look as though someone you don't care about just gave you a compliment you don't believe. Now, in some circles, there is still the matter of being presented at court. This is not mandatory in the Regency era. But if your family has the status, or more importantly the ambition, you may find yourself summoned to St. James's Palace to bow before the Queen, or at least her cousin's niece's aunt, depending on who's available that day. You'll wear plumes in your hair, an absurdly long train, and possibly a gown that violates 2 or 3 fire codes. You will be led into the presence chamber and made to curtsy before royalty. A curtsy you've practiced on uneven rugs for the last 6 weeks. It's not about the Queen, really. It's about the bragging rights. Being presented at court places you in an entirely different social tier. It's the difference between being an eligible young lady and being a debutante of note. But even without court presentation, your debut is now official. Your name will appear in invitation books. Your mother will schedule an endless loop of visits, teas, and music halls. You'll be introduced to family friends, future in-laws, and strangers who smell like saddle leather and pronounce Byron wrong. Every gown you wear will be scrutinized. Every reply you give will be weighed. You are now under permanent social surveillance, and no one will admit it's exhausting. You may receive a coming-out ball, a glittering candlelit affair hosted in your family's drawing room or a rented ballroom. All your mother's friends will attend. All your father's business acquaintances will try not to dance, and you'll stand, trembling, at the top of the staircase like a decorative pigeon. When the music starts, you descend, and you dance. Congratulations. You have officially entered the social meat grinder. You are now a debutante. And from this moment forward, your life will be measured in waltzes, eye contact, and how many potential suitors ask for a second dance. You are elegance embodied. You are grace personified. You are also tired, and it's only week 1. But you've been launched, and there's no going back. So, chin up, gloves on. The party has just begun. The sun rises over London, or rather it tries to, filtered through fog, chimney smoke, and the vague disapproval of your great aunt. And somewhere inside a grand but drafty townhouse in Mayfair, you are being woken up by a maid holding a pitcher of ice-cold water. You are not ready. You went to bed late. after a musical that felt longer than Napoleon's exile, and you spent most of the night dreaming about dropping your dance card into the punch bowl. But none of that matters, because now it is morning, and mornings are for performance. The maid pulls back your curtains with the gentle touch of someone opening a tomb. She mutters something about breakfast, but you know better. You won't actually eat anything substantial until tea time, because the fashionable debutante appetite consists entirely of size and scandal. You sit up. Your hair is already misbehaving. This is bad. Today you'll need curls, obedient, glossy curls pinned just so. And unfortunately, your natural hair prefers rebellion. Enter the hot irons. No, not the gentle sort. These are metal rods heated over open flame, wielded by women with steady hands and no fear of singed ears. Your scalp sizzles, your neck sweats, and through it all, you smile, because pain is temporary. But frizz is social suicide. Once your hair has been tamed into submission, it's time to dress. Now, dressing yourself is no longer considered a solo activity. It's a group project, and you are the mannequin. Your lady's maid, who deserves combat pay, starts the process by lacing your corset. It's not supposed to hurt much, just enough to shrink your waist by several inches, restrict your breathing, and push your organs into formation like a well-trained infantry unit. You've learned to hold on to the bedpost while she pulls. She's learned not to care if you squeak. Over the corset goes a chemise, then petticoats, then a modest shift, then your chosen gown, probably in white or soft blue, with high empire waist and delicate stitching that took 14 hours and will be ruined by one encounter with a buttered scone. Gloves are next, not optional. Ever. Even if it's 30 degrees. Even if you're indoors. Even if you dropped your reticule down the stairs and need to crawl after it. Your hands must remain hidden, elegant, mysterious, presumably clean. Shoes follow, little silk slippers with soles thinner than Regency gossip. You're not meant to walk far in them, or fast, or well. And don't forget the accessories. A reticule no bigger than a squashed orange. A handkerchief you're not supposed to use. A fan for communication. And perhaps a token from your mother. A brooch, a bracelet, or a constant reminder of how expensive you are to maintain. You're finally dressed. Now comes the hard part. Your face. You are not allowed to look tired. You are not allowed to look bored. And you are absolutely forbidden from looking interesting. The Regency debutante face is a masterpiece of mildness, painted in whispers. Powder, if you need it. Rouge, but barely. Lips tinted just enough to suggest you once thought about a strawberry. Anything more, and you'll be mistaken for an actress. Or worse, French. You stare into the mirror. You don't recognize yourself. Good. That means you're ready. Breakfast? Technically. A cup of weak tea and maybe a slice of toast with nothing on it. You sit stiffly in the breakfast room while your parents read the paper and pretend not to strategize about your social schedule. The servants bustle silently. The tea is always just lukewarm, and the whole room smells faintly of books, old drapes, and familial tension. You glance at the clock. It's barely 10 a.m., and your schedule is already stacked. Social calls, shopping with your mother, a possible piano rehearsal, and, if you're very lucky, 45 minutes to sit still and stare out the window without blinking too much. Being agreeable is your full-time job now. But agreeable is a fragile tightrope. You mustn't appear too intelligent. That threatens people. But you mustn't appear dull. That bores them. You must smile, but not laugh. You must speak, but never dominate the conversation. You must have opinions, but keep them folded neatly between pleasantries. If someone asks you about your favorite poet, say Byron, even if you don't like Byron, especially if you don't like Byron. Your goal this morning, like every morning, is to project effortless grace, which, ironically, requires endless effort. Before you leave the house, you pause in the front hallway. Your maid brushes an imaginary speck off your sleeve. Your mother checks your gloves. Again. The footman waits to open the door with perfect timing. Outside, the world is watching. Or, worse, it's not watching. And that, in Regency London, is the ultimate insult. You step outside. The chill air hits your face. You raise your chin, straighten your spine, and prepare to spend the next 12 hours being quietly judged by everyone you meet. Congratulations, your morning is complete. Only 14 hours of strategic smiling to go. You've made it through the morning. Congratulations. You are clean, pressed, accessorized, and emotionally numb, which means it's time for the afternoon visiting rounds, also known as the most exquisitely pointless ritual in the Regency social calendar. Think of it as polite trespassing with extra embroidery. The carriage is waiting. Your mother is already seated, back straight, face unreadable. She clutches her calling card case like it's a holy relic. You climb in behind her and sit on the correct side, never next to her, never too far. And off you go, rattling down the uneven streets of London in pursuit of what exactly? Not pleasure, not conversation, not even tea. No, you're pursuing social stability. A fragile, fussy web of obligation built on 15-minute visits, pre-printed cards, and the vague hope that someone might remember your name when it's time to plan their next ball. Here's how it works. You visit other families, mostly women, and sit very stiffly in their drawing rooms while complimenting their pianofortes, their daughters, or their wallpaper. If they're home, you must stay exactly 15 minutes. No more, no less. Any longer, and you seem pushy. Any shorter, and you seem rude. You sip tea that tastes faintly of lavender and disappointment. You nibble a biscuit that may or may not have existed since last Thursday. You nod. You smile. You murmur things like, "How delightful," and "Yes, the weather has been quite changeable, hasn't it?" And then you leave, just like that. You've accomplished nothing, but you've also not offended anyone, which in this world counts as a triumph. If they're not home, even better. You leave a calling card. This small rectangle of expensive cardstock carries your name, your social intent, and all your family's unspoken hopes. It's the Regency equivalent of saying, "I was here, I'm watching, invite me to things." But don't you dare just toss it on the table. Oh no, there is a science to calling card etiquette. First, the fold. Fold the upper right corner to indicate you delivered the card personally. Fold the lower right corner to signify the card is from a visit of condolence. Fold the entire card if you're announcing your departure from town. A subtle but powerful social mic drop. Then there's the ink. Black ink is for widows or those in mourning. Blue is for particularly fashionable circles, though anything other than black or sepia is considered brave. Never use red. That's for tradesmen or scandal. Placement matters too. You don't just leave it on the table. You place it neatly on the salver or silver tray by the entrance, on top of the pile if you want to be noticed. Discreetly tucked beneath if you're avoiding attention or embarrassment. And yes, your mother will judge you if you get any of this wrong, so will your hostess, and your maid, and possibly the family dog. Entire friendships and I use the term loosely, are maintained this way, with paper and timing. You send a card, they send a card, you visit, they visit. Nobody says anything real, nobody misses anyone. But as long as the cards keep circulating, the friendship survives. Like a bonsai tree no one particularly likes, but refuses to kill. And because this is Regency society, there are rules on who visits whom first. The lower-ranked woman always calls on the higher-ranked one. Younger women call on older women first. Unmarried ladies? Always escorted, preferably by a mother, aunt, or someone who can glare meaningfully at footmen. You never show up unannounced. You never stay past your welcome. You never, ever, comment on someone's furniture unless it's a compliment. Even the act of sitting is choreographed. Never take the central sofa unless invited. Never choose the armchair by the fire. It belongs to the hostess. And never lean back fully. Posture is half your personality now. If, by some twist of fate, your hostess offers to return your visit, that's a good sign. It means you passed the test. Your appearance was acceptable, your manners tolerable, and your mother didn't say anything too bold about asparagus prices. But beware, social calls are not always reciprocal. If you leave a card and no visit follows within a few days, you have been politely ghosted. And unlike modern ghosting, this one is permanent. Your name will be delicately erased from invitation lists. Your mother will pretend it was a clerical error, and you'll quietly never speak of it again. It's astonishing, really, how much pressure is packed into 15 minutes of small talk and lukewarm tea. You must appear calm but interested, quiet but not sullen, decorative but not dull, and above all, inoffensive in every possible way. If you are too witty, you're trying too hard. If you are too quiet, you're ungrateful. If you mention having a headache, a real one, you'll be labeled delicate, which is Regency code for high maintenance. After 3 or 4 stops, your face begins to ache from the same practiced smile. Your gloves are warm and slightly damp. Your mother has only complimented someone's furniture too enthusiastically twice, and your stack of calling cards is nearly gone. You return home around 4 o'clock, not relaxed, not enlightened, but accounted for, which in the world of Regency debutantes is what counts. You've been seen. You've been polite. You've avoided scandal. And if you're very, very lucky, someone might send a note inviting you to yet another event where you'll do all of this again. But for now, your social duties are complete. Tea is being prepared. The candles are being lit. And your next performance, Strolling for Spouses, is about to begin. The hour is fashionable. The air is tolerable. And the time has come to do what every well-bred young lady must do at least 3 times a week during the London season. Walk slowly, in circles, wearing most of her net worth. Welcome to St. James's Park, the unofficial meat market of high society. It is not a coincidence that you're here. Nothing in the season is accidental. You've been placed, prepared, and positioned. Your gown is spotless. Your gloves are spotless. Your shoes will be ruined by pigeons in 10 minutes. But you must pretend not to care. This is the park parade, where debutantes stroll gracefully in the hopes that someone important will pretend to read a newspaper in their direction. Now you may think this is just a walk, but no, this is a mating ritual cleverly disguised as fresh air. Your route is carefully chosen, the Mall curving gently through St. James's Park, past the palace, past the lake, past approximately 93 other young women also pretending not to be auditioning for marriage. You are accompanied, of course, never alone. Your mother, your aunt, or your governess is marching half a step behind you, armed with a parasol and a list of eligible names that would make a general weep. Your pace is deliberate, not too fast. That suggests desperation or exercise. Not too slow. That suggests you're trying to be seen. No. The perfect debutante walk is one of effortless elegance. Carefully rehearse the night before in the hallway. And what are you doing exactly? You're being visible. You are part of a display case, strolling advertisements for marriage material. Each dress, each accessory, each carefully managed curl screams, "Observe me, admire me. Ask my mother if I'm free on Thursday." You are not allowed to speak too loudly or too softly. You must smile, but only vaguely. You must notice the ducks, but not too enthusiastically. No one wants to marry someone who actually likes ducks. Every once in a while, your mother will gesture discreetly. That's Lord Tewkesbury. He's single. Don't look directly at him, but look near him. And now, casually, laugh. Yes, just like that. Very good. And here come the gentlemen, not walking, of course not. Walking is for the desperate. No, they arrive on horseback. They ride along Rotten Row, coats perfectly tailored, expressions just aloof enough to imply they've read Byron and don't care for him. Their boots are shined, their posture heroic, and their ability to look bored while scanning for wives is frankly impressive. Some carry riding crops they've never used. Some hold books, usually poetry, which they will not read. And one or two will stop by the rail, pretend to stretch, and glance at you like they've just remembered you from a dream. They have names like Peregrine, or Algernon, or worse, Viscount Peregrine Algernon de Wintermere, Esquire. They have estates in Devonshire, debts in Mayfair, and mothers even more ruthless than yours. They'll nod, tip their hats, maybe even ask for an introduction, through the proper channels, of course, and then ride away like nothing happened. Because here in the park, everything is performance. You pass other debutantes as you walk. Some are your friends, some are your enemies, some are both, depending on who received more dance invitations last week. They pretend not to look at you. You pretend not to look at them. Your mothers look at each other like fencing opponents about to take the first lunge. You comment on the weather. You comment on the trees. You do not comment on the fact that one of the riders just very clearly tried to make eye contact and missed. If all goes well, your stroll will result in the following: one raised eyebrow from a passing gentleman, one whispered compliment about your elegant bearing, and a potential request to be included on someone's dance card later this week. If all goes poorly, well, there's always next Thursday and a different gown. Now, let's discuss the unspoken rules. You must always walk with purpose, even if that purpose is to be witnessed and assessed by strangers on horseback. You may not eat before the walk. One mustn't look bloated while being subtly auctioned. You must avoid stepping in anything unpleasant. It's bad luck. And worse, it's a conversation topic. If you are spoken to directly by a gentleman without proper introduction, you must respond politely, briefly, and with enough ambiguity that your mother won't scold you afterward. If your younger sister begins to chatter loudly about tulips, silence her with grace. No one wants to marry a girl whose family lacks volume control. After one or two loops of the path, your slippers are damp, your cheeks are cold, and your back is starting to ache from all the graceful pretending. Your mother glances at the sky, decides the angle of the light is no longer flattering, and signals it's time to return. You curtsy faintly to no one in particular. You re-enter the carriage like royalty escaping a coup. And as you roll away from St. James's Park, you wonder if anyone actually saw you, or if you've just spent an hour walking in slow, expensive circles for nothing. But don't worry, because next time you might catch someone's eye. You might be complimented on your parasol. You might receive a vague inquiry from Lord Tewkesbury's valet's cousin. And that, dear listener, is how progress works in the Regency courtship economy. One glance at a time, one walk at a time, one carefully composed silence at a time. You are not tired, you are not freezing, you are visible. And that is the highest currency you have right now. Now go home, sip your tea, and pray that your boots haven't left a mark on your hem. You've earned your rest, at least until the next party. Evening has fallen over London. Candles flicker behind every silk-curtained window, and across the city, carriages are pulling up to some of the most important and least attended to events of the entire social calendar. It is time for the theater, or possibly the opera, but don't worry, you're not expected to actually pay attention. Theater and opera nights are not about art. They are not about music. They are not even about the plot. They are about visibility, about showing up, being seen, and leaning forward at the exact right moment so that someone across the room might whisper, "Isn't that Miss Wexford? The one with the cousin in the Guards?" This is not entertainment. This is spectacle, and not the kind on stage, the kind arranged in velvet and diamonds along the tiered balconies. Your family has rented a box. Of course they have. Everyone who matters has a box. It's 1 part viewing space, 1 part living room, and 3 parts social flex. You've dressed for the occasion, which means everything you're wearing is more expensive than the theater itself. Your gown sparkles. Your gloves are spotless. Your hair has been repinned 3 times by candlelight, and you are now seated at the front of the box, turned ever so slightly away from the stage. Because let's be honest, the actors are not the draw. The draw is who else is here, and more importantly, who else saw you arrive. Your mother is already scanning the boxes across from yours. She knows who will be here tonight. She has a mental map of every peer, dowager, and potential suitor's sister in the theater. And she is evaluating their outfits like a military general inspecting uniforms before battle. Meanwhile, your father pretends to read the program. He's not really interested in the show either, but he's keeping up appearances. At least until the second act, when he'll begin snoring into his cravat. On stage, the players begin. A tragedy, perhaps, or a farce, or an Italian opera with 7 acts and no clear plot. It doesn't matter. No one is really listening. The important things are happening in the whispers between boxes. Lady Gainsborough has returned from the country without her daughter. Lord Rutherford is seated suspiciously close to Miss Lennox, again. And the Countess of Darnley is wearing last year's turban, which is frankly a public offense. Theater night is gossip in velvet gloves. Everything that matters is unsaid. But somehow, everyone knows. If you're lucky, a gentleman might glance up at your box. He may raise his opera glass and nod with studied disinterest. And your mother, ever alert, will note the gesture, decode its meaning, and make 3 social calculations before the overture finishes. Sometimes the boxes exchange visits. This is allowed, even expected. A young man may stop by for a brief chat between acts. He will comment vaguely on the performance. You will smile vaguely in return. He may ask if he'll see you at Almack's on Thursday. You will pretend not to know, and then he'll vanish, possibly to repeat this entire conversation 2 boxes over. And now, the opera. If the theater is a parade, the opera is an arms race. The tickets cost more, the gowns sparkle brighter, the boredom runs deeper. And the singing? Well, it's passionate, it's foreign, and it's very, very loud. You are not here for the story, which, let's be honest, you couldn't follow even if you tried. Someone is in love. Someone is dying. Someone is disguised as someone else. There are arias. There are tears. There are multiple encores you didn't ask for. But none of that matters, because opera nights are where reputations are cemented or shattered. You sit still. You appear interested. You occasionally murmur, "What a splendid performance," while your eyes scan the opposite tiers for rivals and sapphires. If you're attending with friends, you may whisper behind a fan. Just be careful. Boxes aren't exactly soundproof, and Lady Carrington's hearing is mysteriously excellent. And if you're very, very fortunate, the opera ends on time. If not, well, consider this your endurance training. Now, here's the thing no one will admit. The best seat in the house is the worst place to be. Those floor seats, down below, with a full view of the stage, those are for people who care about the performance, which is to say, not you, not your mother, not your suitor, and certainly not Lord Tewkesbury, who hasn't listened to music since 1805 and is currently halfway through a hip flask behind the curtain. You might think this is all very tiring, and you would be absolutely correct. But remember, these outings are not optional. They are obligations, rituals, proof that you're part of the dance. You don't go to the theater to see. You go to be seen. You don't listen to the opera. You survive the opera, and hopefully come out the other end with a dinner invitation and a slightly elevated social standing. Eventually, the performance ends. People clap, more from relief than from admiration. Carriages are summoned, cloaks retrieved, and your mother whispers one final evaluation of everyone's outfits on the way down the staircase. You emerge into the London night, still smiling, still composed, still expected to be fascinating for what's to come. Because in Regency London, the show is never really over. You've survived the theater. You've smiled through the opera. And now, finally, something resembling fun, sort of, if you squint. Tonight, you are going to the Pleasure Gardens, a Regency-era amusement park dressed in lace and expectations. There are 2 that matter. Vauxhall Gardens, loud, crowded, occasionally scandalous. And Ranelagh Gardens, more refined but no less ridiculous. You're headed to one of them. You're not sure which. It doesn't matter. The goal is the same, to be seen, admired, and possibly proposed to under fireworks and awkward lighting. The Pleasure Gardens are the closest thing Regency society has to a public playground. There are orchestras. There are illuminated fountains. There are fireworks that are either thrilling or deafening, depending on your tolerance for gunpowder and screaming baronets. At first glance, it looks magical. Candles line the walkways. Lanterns sway from trees. The entire garden flickers like some kind of enchanted forest curated by a deeply judgmental wedding planner. But make no mistake, beneath the sparkle, this is still a battlefield, and you, dear debutante, are still in uniform. You arrive in your 3rd gown of the day. This one is slightly bolder, because the gardens allow a bit more flair. Pastels are replaced with soft jewel tones. Your hair is adorned with flowers, feathers, or whatever else your maid could pin to your head in under 10 minutes. The carriages are lined up like painted beetles. You're helped down the steps by a footman, immediately handed a paper lantern you didn't ask for, and swept into a sea of satin and expectation. Now, the pleasure gardens are technically open to everyone, but don't let that fool you. There are sections, unofficial but very real. The aristocracy lounges along the best-lit promenades, the middling classes stick to the musical pavilions, and the less respectable? They hover near the refreshment stalls, blending in with the shadows and pretending not to eavesdrop. Your mother steers you toward the respectable zone. Not that it helps, because what happens in the pleasure gardens rarely stays there. The walkways are long and winding, designed for accidental meetings that are anything but. You stroll arm in arm with your cousin, pretending to enjoy the music. You laugh softly at nothing. You pause by a hedge, and oh, who should happen to be standing just nearby but Mr. Fairchild, who also happens to be single, rich, and known for having a strong jawline. How serendipitous, how thoroughly scripted. And then there are the dark walks. The name is not subtle. These are shadowy, tree-lined paths that twist just far enough from the lanterns to invite trouble. Ladies are warned never to go down them unescorted. Gentlemen are warned, but tend to ignore it. These walks are notorious for stolen kisses, for whispered promises, for proposals made far too soon, and sometimes regretted by morning. If you wander too close, your chaperone will clear her throat. If you enter, she may faint entirely. Either way, your name will end up in someone's diary tomorrow, and possibly someone's gossip pamphlet by the end of the week. Let's talk food. There is food here. It is bad. For a price equivalent to a modest pair of gloves, you may enjoy overboiled peas, undercooked ham, mystery pastries, and an entire bottle of orgeat syrup that will haunt your dreams. But you are not here to eat. Eating makes you look occupied. And the pleasure gardens are about availability, being visibly open to conversation, compliments, and scandal in equal measure. At some point, a performance will happen, a concert, a tightrope walker, a magician who appears to be drunk. You will clap politely. You will pretend to be impressed. You will make a comment about how delightful it all is, even if your feet are numb and your hem is wet from an unfortunate puddle incident. And then, finally, the fireworks. They begin with a crack, then a boom, then a series of increasingly extravagant explosions meant to signal joy, patriotism, and wealth. You tilt your chin upward. Your profile is illuminated in silver light. You look, for just a moment, like someone in love, even if it's only with the idea of finally getting to sit down. A young man glances at you during the finale. He smiles. Your mother sees it. She makes a note. You pretend not to notice. And the game continues. As the fireworks fade and the crowd begins to thin, your carriage is retrieved. You gather your shawl. You avoid stepping on your own train. You climb inside and exhale, carefully so as not to wrinkle anything. You've spent 3 hours pretending not to care about anything, while caring intensely about everything. You're exhausted. Your corset is digging into your ribs, and your shoes are soaked. But you did it. You survived the pleasure gardens, and managed to remain both charming and technically unscandalized. Barely. It's Thursday, which means it's time for Almax. You are not excited. You are not ready. But if you want any chance of social survival this season, you must go. Because Almax is not just a ballroom. It is the iron gate of the aristocracy, and it only opens for the worthy. To understand Almax, imagine a party hosted by 7 of the most powerful, elegant, and terrifying women in London, who decide collectively whether or not you're even allowed to exist socially. They are called the Lady Patronesses, and they do not play. Each Thursday they assemble in their glittering war council and judge a parade of hopeful debutantes and desperate mothers, not by birth, not by wealth, but by vibe. Are you fashionable? Are you elegant? Are you the right sort? If the answer is no, even slightly no, you are denied a voucher. And without a voucher, you are not going to Almax, which is Regency code for you may still be alive, but socially, you're already buried. Let's say you've been granted entry. You feel relief. That's cute, because now you have to endure the evening. And the evening, dear listener, is misery in muslin. The ballroom is hot. It is always hot. A grand chandelier sweats wax onto the floor. Dozens of candles flicker in protest, and over 100 anxious humans press into a space designed for 75. The room smells faintly of perfume, desperation, and boiled wool. The dancing begins, not gracefully, not romantically, but in rigid rows, set to the music of a mildly depressed violinist and his 3 weary companions. You know the steps. You've been drilled in them since childhood. But now you must execute them perfectly, in full view of everyone, while pretending not to care who's watching. Your partner is someone your mother whispered about in the carriage. He is rich. He is titled. He is also extremely boring. You curtsy. He bows. You touch fingertips like you're both handling fragile eggs. And then you begin the quadrille. Step, pause, turn, glance, spin. Don't trip. Don't talk. Don't breathe too loudly. If you're lucky, he says something like, "Fine evening," or "The crowd is large tonight." If you're very lucky, he says nothing at all. No one makes eye contact. That would be too intimate. Everyone gazes slightly above each other's left shoulders, like nervous ghosts pretending not to be haunted. In between dances, you do not sit. There are not enough chairs. You stand, smiling faintly, pretending your feet are not filled with pain and crushed dreams. You drink weak lemonade. You nibble on a biscuit that tastes like damp chalk. You make polite conversation with girls who are secretly praying you don't get more invitations than they do. Every word, every glance, every half smile at Almax is a tactical maneuver. This is not fun. This is war in white silk. Now, about those Lady Patronesses. They're watching, always watching. One is seated at the far end of the ballroom, sipping punch with the serene smugness of a woman who knows she could end your life with a raised eyebrow. Another strolls through the dancers, complimenting hair ribbons and making notes on which girls are slouching. They are the gatekeepers of every meaningful marriage. They decide who gets introduced to whom. They determine whether your cousin's scandal from 2 years ago is still relevant. If you cross one of them, say by wearing too much rouge, or laughing a little too loudly, or having the wrong kind of French accent, they will remember forever. And yet, you must keep coming back, because everyone who matters comes to Almax, which means you must too. You must dance. You must sparkle. You must act like you're thrilled to be sweating in a room full of silent enemies and musical chairs, even if you're exhausted, even if you hate waltzing, even if Lord Dreadful just stepped on your hem and didn't apologize. Once the dancing ends, the real tension begins. The whispered evaluations, the quiet judgments. Did you dance with enough partners? Did you sit out too many quadrilles? Did Lady Jersey's eyebrow twitch when you dropped your fan? You don't know. No one tells you. You just wait. You just hope. Because a good showing at Almax means you're still in the running. A bad showing means next Thursday might not come. Eventually, you're back in the carriage. Your hair is wilting. Your gloves are damp. And your mother is staring out the window in total silence, which is either a good sign or a very, very bad one. You don't speak. You don't ask. You just pray she doesn't bring up your posture. Almax is over. Until next week. And until then, you'll live in social purgatory, floating between anxiety and preparation, reviewing your gown choices, and wondering whether smiling at Lord Tewkesbury for 2 seconds longer than usual counts as flirting. You don't know. You'll never know. And that, dear listener, is why the season exists, to keep you dancing, doubting, and perfectly exhausted. By now, you've danced, smiled, strolled, curtsied, and survived exactly 3.5 near scandals. You've worn 7 different gowns in 5 days. You've attended 4 events, consumed 2 dry biscuits, and heard 0 actual compliments that weren't filtered through someone's mother. And here's the kicker. You haven't even made it to the expensive part yet. Let's talk about the cost. Because being a debutante in Regency, London, wasn't just emotionally exhausting. It was also financially ruinous. Start with the gowns. Yes, plural. Because you can't wear the same dress twice. That's for governesses and ghosts. You need a morning dress, an afternoon dress, a promenade dress, an opera dress, a theater dress, a ball gown, and a backup gown, in case one of the above is destroyed by soup, soot, or scandal. And no, they're not interchangeable. A muslin trimmed with pearl for Almax would be absolutely offensive at Vauxhall. Heaven forbid your lace appears too French at a patriotic ball, or worse, not French enough. Now add the accessories. You'll need gloves, several pairs. They yellow faster than your reputation. Reticules, tiny purses designed to hold absolutely nothing. Hand fans, hand-painted, imported, and pointedly expensive. Stockings, shoes, hairpieces, tiaras, if applicable, combs, brooches, and, oh yes, jewelry. Even modest girls wear enough jewels to blind a pigeon at 20 paces. Some of them are family heirlooms. Some are rented. Some are borrowed permanently. And that's just what goes on you. Now consider what carries you. You arrive at every event in a carriage, and not just any carriage. It must be polished. It must be driven by the right sort of coachman. It must have horses that don't look tired, poor, or, heaven forbid, provincial. You may also need a maid to help you dress, a footman to escort you, a companion to guard your virtue, your gloves, and your ability to survive boredom. Each of them expects to be paid regularly, preferably in cash, or at least in gossip-proof coin. And let's not forget tickets. The theater, the opera, the pleasure gardens, Almax. You don't just show up, you subscribe. Opera boxes are leased like vacation homes and priced accordingly. You're not just buying access, you're buying proximity to the right people, the right seats, and the right whispers. On top of that, there are bribes, not open, not obvious, but they exist. A tip here to a musician for playing a favorite song. A discreet payment to ensure your name stays on the guest list. A generous gift to a seamstress to make sure your dress is finished before Lady Florington's. All of this is considered normal, expected, polite. Now imagine having 3 daughters, 3 debutantes, 3 full wardrobes, 3 sets of servants, 3 potential dowries, depending on how badly negotiations go. And if one of them develops a reputation for being difficult, you'll have to work twice as hard to make the others look twice as obedient. Some families spend more in a single season than they would running their entire estate for a year. Some mortgage land. Some borrow from cousins. Some pray they die before the bills come due. And for what? To get married. To secure a husband whose main qualifications might be owning property and having a last name ending in Aishir. And then there's the worst case scenario. You spend everything, your time, your patience, your wardrobe budget, and still no proposals, no matches, no understandings passed discreetly through mutual acquaintances, just polite nods, faint smiles, and the haunting suspicion that your ball gown wasn't quite sparkly enough. Picture it. You're standing at Vauxhall in a dress that cost more than your maid earns in a year. You're eating a pastry that tastes like regret. You're smiling at a man who may or may not remember your name tomorrow. And you realize your dowry is gone, spent on fireworks and fans. And still, you're going home single. This was not uncommon. In fact, some young women ended their seasons with less than they began, emotionally, financially, and reputationally. And what happens then? You return to the country. You pretend you needed a break. You read books. You write long, vague letters. And you wait to be invited back, if you're invited back. So yes, the Regency season was romantic, in the way that auctions are romantic, competitive, ruthless, and very, very expensive. Now breathe. You've made it this far without fainting. Your corset hasn't snapped. Your family hasn't defaulted on the carriage lease. Yet, next time someone tells you they wish they lived in Jane Austen's world, ask if they can afford it. You've done it. You've survived Almack's. You've endured Vauxhall. You've danced until your toes went numb and your reputation held just barely. And now, as if society has decided you deserve some kind of reward, comes the most exciting, extravagant, and faintly horrifying social event of them all, the masquerade. Now, in theory, masquerades were about elegance, about fantasy, about donning a mask and becoming someone else, someone daring, someone flirtatious, someone who didn't have to worry about posture or propriety or whether her cousin was going to outshine her again. But in practice, masquerades were where Regency people went to make terrible decisions under soft lighting. First, the masks. Ostensibly, these are meant to conceal your identity. In reality, they conceal just enough to provide plausible deniability. No one is truly unrecognizable. You're still wearing your signature perfume. Your earrings still match your mother's tiara. And your cousin still has that unfortunate lisp. But the point of the mask isn't to hide. It's to pretend. To pretend, for one night, that rules are bendable, that etiquette is optional, that the man whispering in your ear might not be the same one who insulted your hemline last week. Now the costumes. There are no rules, which of course means there are so many unspoken rules. You might come dressed as a Greek goddess, draped in gauze, trimmed in gold, and trying not to trip over your borrowed sandals. Or perhaps a pastoral shepherdess, one who has somehow wandered into the ball wearing embroidered silk and diamond earrings. One woman might arrive as Cleopatra, another as Queen Elizabeth. Someone bold might attempt night and day, a half-black, half-white gown that makes her look like a chessboard, but ensures everyone remembers her name. And the men? Oh, the men love masquerades, because it gives them a chance to behave badly while pretending it's the costume's fault. There he is, Lord Ridley, dressed as a pirate. He is quoting Shakespeare badly. He is attempting to flirt with your cousin. He is 3 glasses of punch deep and misquoting Byron. And there's Mr. Fortescue, in Roman garb. He says he's Caesar, but his toga is sliding off and he keeps winking at women who are clearly not impressed. Costumes are excuses. Excuses to touch a hand too long, to whisper a joke too sharp, to say things you'd never say at Almack's, or rather to say them and pretend you didn't mean it. The music is louder. The food is richer. The rules are looser. No chaperones hover too close at a masquerade, not without a mask themselves. And even if they're watching, who can say which Lady Pembroke kissed which Lord Featherstone behind the hedge? Everyone saw it. No one's quite sure who it was. And that, dear listener, is the magic of the masquerade. Of course, not all masquerades end in disaster. Some end in whispered proposals, some in quiet heartbreak, some in someone accidentally setting their sleeve on fire near the candelabra. And then there are costume balls, the safer, more acceptable cousin of the masquerade. At a costume ball, you still wear something absurd, but you do so in a recognizable way. You're a milkmaid, but everyone knows it's you. You're dressed as a Roman goddess, but your father's monogram is still embroidered on your gloves. There's less scandal, less risk, more, oh how clever, and less, was that Lord Devonshire behind the curtains? You still dance. You still flirt. You still suffer the indignity of trying to eat petit fours in a corset shaped like a sundial. But at least here, the behavior is slightly more visible, more accountable, more appropriate, or at least easier to explain the next morning. Now let's talk about the stakes. Because despite the ridiculous outfits and the giggling behind fans, masquerades were dangerous, not in the sword-fighting sense, but in the social one. A single misstep, one wrong whisper, one unchaperoned moment in a shadowy corner could follow you for the rest of the season, or your life. One girl in 1807 dressed as a witch and danced too closely with a man dressed as the devil. She wasn't invited back the following year. No one ever explained why. Another wore a mask so convincing that her own fiancé failed to recognize her and flirted with her best friend instead. Yes, they still married. Yes, it was awkward. No, it didn't go well. But still, you go. Because if you don't, you're invisible. And if you're invisible, you're forgotten. And if you're forgotten, you might as well be 30. So you pin on your feathers. You adjust your hem. You pretend you're Aphrodite or a swan, or the person your mother thinks you could be if you just tried a little harder. And you smile. You glide. You make polite mischief. And you hope, against all odds, that tonight's drama will belong to someone else. By midnight, the masks come off. The costumes are unraveling. Someone's wig has fallen into the fountain. And somewhere in the ballroom, a scandal is already being written. In ink, in whispers, in glances exchanged as the music fades. You return home in a haze of powdered sugar, perfume, and paranoia. Was that laugh too loud? Did someone see you in the garden? Will the Lady Patronesses find out? And still, you sleep with the mask beside your bed, just in case there's another masquerade next week. Because for one night you weren't a debutante. You were someone else. And if you're lucky, no one will remember who. So, you've walked the parks, you've danced at Almack's, you've survived the masquerade with only mild emotional trauma and half your reputation intact. But before you let down your carefully curled hair and declare yourself victorious, let's pause for a moment. Because in the Regency season, one mistake can ruin everything. Not a big mistake, not something cinematic. No, that would be too obvious. Instead, it's the small things, the tiny missteps, the polite miscalculations, the almost invisible wrongs that can end you. These are the social landmines. And you, dear listener, are tiptoeing through a very crowded field. Let's begin with the obvious horror, laughing too loud. A debutante is allowed to be many things: pleasant, agreeable, slightly amusing, faintly witty in controlled bursts. But if your laugh echoes off the ballroom walls, if someone 3 chandeliers away turns to look, if a gentleman winces slightly, well, you might as well have dropped your corset in the middle of a quadrille. A laugh must be soft, delicate, the sound of someone who has never felt true joy and wouldn't admit it if she had. Anything beyond that? Dangerous. Now let's say you're at a tea party. A charming young man tells a joke that's actually funny. You reach out and, heavens, touch his sleeve. Not his hand, not his arm, just the sleeve of his jacket. And suddenly, the air in the room changes. Eyes narrow. Fans flutter. Your chaperone makes a strangled noise into her biscuit. Because touching a man's clothing, in public, suggests familiarity. And familiarity suggests intimacy. And intimacy suggests you may already be halfway to naming your 3rd child together. It doesn't matter if it was accidental. It doesn't matter if he didn't flinch. What matters is that Lady Thornton saw. And she will tell someone. And by next Tuesday, you'll be the girl who touched Lord Butterfield's sleeve in broad daylight. And then there's the chaperone problem. At no point, under any circumstance, should you be alone with a man. Not in a garden, not in a hallway, not even under an awning during a rainstorm, while 4 other people stand 10 feet away. If you are seen without a chaperone, you are no longer a debutante. You are a scandal with a bonnet, even if nothing happened, even if all he said was lovely weather, even if the entire conversation took 7 seconds and involved 0 eye contact. You will now be discussed in murmurs. Invitations may not arrive. A certain colonel may forget to call. And your mother will spend the next month looking pale and furious in equal measure. Of course, none of these things guarantee social death, not immediately. But all it takes is for your name to be whispered in the wrong corners. In the powder room at Almack's, in the back pew after Sunday service, or worst of all, in the ear of a Lady Patroness during intermission at the opera. Once that happens, once your name becomes a topic, you are finished. Not obviously, not theatrically. No doors slam, no dresses are torn. You just fade. Fewer invitations, fewer partners, fewer second glances at the park, until one day you realize no one is whispering about you at all. And in high society, that's worse than scandal. That's irrelevance. Now, some girls try to save themselves. They lean in. They become interesting. They flirt harder. They speak boldly. And what do they get for it? They marry a man who smells like beef gravy and collects Latin poetry, who thinks quoting Ovid is seductive, who mistakes your silence for admiration and your glazed stare for charm. You will sit beside him at dinner for the next 40 years. You will hear him explain the etymology of the word verbatim at every social function. You will smile. You will nod. And you will privately curse the day you reached for that sleeve. The truth is, most social ruin in the Regency world doesn't come from scandal. It comes from perception. You don't have to be immoral. You just have to look like you might be. You don't have to break the rules. You just have to bend one, near the wrong people. And once you're labeled as too loud, too fast, too bold, too familiar, it's nearly impossible to undo. No amount of good posture or tasteful accessories can wash that rumor out of your hemline. So what do? You smile, you freeze, you rehearse every word in your head 3 times before speaking it aloud. You practice laughing without showing your teeth. You let your dance card fill slowly, not too fast. You nod politely when your mother praises someone awful, and you memorize the exact distance a woman can stand from a man in a garden without being accused of impropriety. In other words, you survive. Barely. And that, dear listener, is how most young women fail at the season. Not because they weren't beautiful, not because they weren't intelligent, but because they laughed or blinked or breathed wrong, at the wrong moment, in the wrong place, in the wrong dress. The line between success and disaster in Regency society is razor thin, and it's lined with calling cards, lemon biscuits, and judgmental glances. So tread carefully, adjust your gloves, smile just enough, but never too much. And whatever you do, don't touch the sleeve. Congratulations, you did it. After 6 months of strategic sighing, careful curtsies, and walking in circles through parks while pretending not to look at anyone directly, you finally found a match. Not just any match, a respectable one. He's 36, you're 17. He smells faintly of tobacco and mutton, but he has land, a title, and 3 vowels in his surname. So, well done. Your mother is delighted. Your father pretends not to cry, from relief or bankruptcy narrowly avoided. And you? You nod. You smile. You try not to hyperventilate into your embroidery, because this isn't just courtship anymore. It's a contract, and the ink is still wet. First, there's the announcement. It's in the paper. It's in the drawing rooms. It's in the air like cologne and panic. People you barely spoke to are suddenly offering congratulations. Other debutantes give you smiles that do not reach their eyes. One girl sends you a note that reads, "I'm so happy for you," underlined 3 times, which in Regency means, "I hope your corset snaps at the altar." Next comes the dowry negotiations. This is the romantic part, where your future is discussed in units of currency. What do you bring to the table? Money? Land? A set of silver forks shaped like swans? Whatever it is, it's handed over, carefully, legally, and often with the faint sound of your father's teeth grinding. You, of course, have no say in this. You're the package being exchanged, wrapped in silk, ribboned with etiquette, and hopefully not too outspoken. You'd think that getting engaged would mean rest, a break, a few days to lie down, loosen the corset, and whisper to your pillow, "Thank heavens, I don't have to go to another ball." But no, that's adorable, because now, dear listener, you've entered the most judgmental phase of all, the victory lap. Yes, you're engaged. Yes, you've secured a title, a future, and a gentleman who doesn't eat soup with his sleeves. But now you must prove to society that you are, in fact, still winning, which means you will keep attending parties, you will keep smiling politely, and you will parade your fiancé like a prized racehorse with decent conversational skills. The goal now is not to be chosen. You've done that. The goal now is to make everyone else regret not choosing you sooner. Let's talk about the dress code. You're no longer just a debutante. You are engaged, and that comes with a very specific color palette. No more virginal white. No more eye-catching red. You wear pastels now, soft pinks, delicate blues, ivory trimmed in pearl, the shade of victory whispered across a room. Your jewelry is lighter but strategic. A modest diamond pendant, a ring that sparkles just enough to be noticed from across the dance floor. Nothing too bold. After all, you're not flaunting. You're simply radiating superiority in lace and lavender. You re-enter the ballroom not as a hopeful, but as a confirmed success. But here's the twist. Now, they're not watching you. They're watching him. That's right. Your fiancé, Lord Possibly Decent, is under surveillance. Every look he gives, every sentence he stammers, every choice of waistcoat. It's all being evaluated by unmarried girls hoping he has a brother, overbearing mothers who wish their daughters had gotten there first, and Lady Dunthorpe, who just doesn't like anyone being happy. If he fumbles a dance, they notice. If he forgets your glove, they remember. If he dares to speak fondly of his dog, half the room will speculate that you'll be widowed in 5 years and married to the butler. And then there are the older debutantes, 19, maybe 20, veterans of multiple seasons, still technically on the market, but visibly cracking. They look at you, 17, glowing, freshly betrothed, with all the affection of a lioness eyeing a rival near her last scrap of gazelle. They nod at you in greeting. They say, "How lovely for you," but their fans are twitching, and their mothers are already muttering about questionable bloodlines. You try to be gracious. You try to stay humble. You fail. Because how could you not enjoy this just a little? You survived the season. You avoided scandal. You managed not to faint, flirt, or falter at the wrong time. And now, you're being toasted with watered-down champagne in drawing rooms that once ignored your very existence. Still, the pressure hasn't disappeared. If anything, it's sharpened. Because the minute you're engaged, you're expected to act the part of a perfect future wife. You must look radiant, but not vain. Speak warmly of your fiancé, but not excessively. Be proud, but not smug. And above all, seem genuinely in love, even if your fiancé looks like a startled librarian in breeches. The parties continue. The dances blur. You spin through waltzes with other men, carefully, politely, never suggestively, while your intended chats with someone's great aunt about livestock. And yet, you still have to be charming. You still have to be watchful. Because if something goes wrong, if your fiancé is caught yawning at the opera or says something questionable about Napoleon, the whispers begin again. He was too old. He wasn't quite rich enough. You should have waited one more season. But you smile. You wear your pastel gown. You accept compliments on your radiance from women who will later say your hips look wide. And you dance. One last time. Through the fire-lit haze of the drawing room. Through the music and muffled laughter. Through the eyes of the society that raised you, judged you, and now, however reluctantly, accepts you. This is your victory lap. Not because you won the heart of a man, but because you made it through the labyrinth of glances, dances, silence, and shoes that pinch. You are leaving this chapter with a ring on your finger, calluses on your soul, and a deep appreciation for the value of never touching anyone's sleeve in public. Next stop, marriage, which, according to your mother, will be much more restful. First, let's talk about your marriage wardrobe. New dresses, new gloves, new nightgowns that are somehow both modest and terrifyingly suggestive. You will need a full set of morning gowns for managing a household you've never seen, afternoon gowns for receiving guests you don't like, riding habits, even if you don't ride, and at least 3 bonnets that say, "I'm sophisticated now, but still fertile." Your maid sobs quietly while adjusting the hem of your going-away dress. You try not to do the same. You're introduced to your new home. It has wings. Wings. You're not entirely sure how many rooms are in it. Some have been locked since the Napoleonic Wars. Others house relatives no one talks about. The gardens are impressive. The staff is numerous. And your bedroom, your chamber, looks like something from a painting titled The Oppression of Youth in Mauve. Your husband is proud. You are polished. And everyone around you seems to believe this is the best outcome possible, because in their eyes, it is. You're married, secured, removed from the exhausting cattle market that is the season. You'll never have to flirt again. You'll never have to waltz with a stranger who breathes through his mouth. Instead, you'll run a household host dinner parties, write thank you notes for apricot jam, and bear a series of politely named children who will inherit your posture and his unfortunate jawline. Is it love? Does it matter? Love in this context is considered an optional side dish. Nice if it happens. Utterly irrelevant if it doesn't. What matters is stability, inheritance, and that you produce a male heir before your hair grays or your patience does. You may grow fond of him. Eventually, he might read to you. He might let you redecorate the drawing room. He might fall asleep in a different wing of the house, which is honestly ideal. And you'll learn to smile at the right times, to nod when the steward asks questions about livestock, to host card nights for neighbors you secretly wish would fall into a pond. This is your life now, and for many it's a better fate than becoming a spinster, because at least now you have purpose, and a fireplace, and possibly a pug. But still, you sometimes stare out the window and remember that moment at Vauxhall, the one where a younger man smiled at you for real, the one who recited poetry without needing to be asked, the one who didn't sneeze when you wore lavender. He married someone else. She wore blue. You heard they eloped. Scandalous, romantic, unwise. But sometimes you wonder. Still, you remind yourself, you succeeded. You won the game. You made it through the season without disgrace, without debt, without becoming the subject of an all-max cautionary tale. And now, as you adjust your wedding gloves and prepare to step into a carriage labeled happily ever after by everyone but you, you smile. Because in the Regency world, success often sounds like surrender, delivered in a soft voice, under a veil, with very good posture. And so we come to the end, dear listener, not of the season, heaven help us, that would require 6 more months of smiling and satin, but of our midnight little journey into the powdered, perfumed madness of being a Regency debutante. You've curtsied, you've promenaded, you've eaten tasteless cakes under the watchful eyes of 77 strangers. You've survived Vauxhall, Almex, gossip, gloves, calling cards, and at least 3 forms of social trauma that no one bothered to name. And now, you understand. The Regency season wasn't glamorous. It was exhausting. A corset-laced obstacle course designed to test your ability to stay upright while your reputation slowly unraveled under candlelight. You weren't a guest. You weren't even a participant. You were a pawn, perfectly coiffed, emotionally dehydrated, and dressed like a meringue. A debutante was expected to be many things: elegant, but not proud pleasant, but not memorable charming, but not clever enough to frighten anyone with an inheritance, and always, always, quietly marketable. Because in the end, the goal was never fun. The goal was marriage, preferably before your second season, before your older cousin beats you to it, and definitely before anyone noticed your wrists were too tan. So if you're lying there, drifting somewhere between sleep and scandal, Let me offer this final thought. You now know how to party like a Regency debutante, whether you wanted to or not. You've earned your reticule. You've earned your fan. You've earned the right to never attend a candlelit ball again unless someone carries you in on a velvet litter. Now rest. Close your eyes. Let the memory of lukewarm lamb stew and judgmental glances wash over you like a tepid bath. And dream, sweet listener. Dream of overpriced gowns, poorly lit ballrooms, fainting spells faked for dramatic effect, and the quiet agony of being 17 and constantly surveilled. You made it through. You survived the season. And unlike half the debutantes, you didn't faint once. Well done.